Good afternoon everybody and welcome to Georambles. I'm in the East End of London in the United Kingdom where I'm currently in the borough of Barking and Dagenham, and there are some extremely interesting geographical issues to talk about here on this Georamble. Now, Barking and Dagenham is, as I say, one of the boroughs of London. It's towards the east of London, past Tower Hamlets, out towards the counties of Suffolk and Essex. It's about 9 miles east of the city. That's about 15 kilometres for those of you who are Antipodean. And the East End of London in general is well known as an area that is subject to significant levels of deprivation. Barking and Dagenham is in fact one of the poorest districts. There are 306 districts in Britain, made up of boroughs, municipal boroughs, various other governance forms, and Barking and Dagenham is one of the poorest. According to the latest statistics, in 2020, the poverty rate here is about 25%, and that ranks as one of the highest, or rather one of the worst, in the United Kingdom. So this borough is subject to all sorts of significant pressures, but things have changed over time and things are changing very quickly right now. The borough hasn't always been poor. It was founded in 750 approximately AD by the Anglo-Saxons, and for a long time it was a rural village. Over time it developed to become a significant town in its own right, and beyond the east of London there, beyond the most povertous regions in the 1800s and the early 1900s, it was considered a kind of peri-urban region. After the First World War, parts of what's now Barking and Dagenham were developed into major residential estates, and interwar housing was built, interwar housing on large estates. In fact, the Becontree estate is the largest that was built in Britain, with many tens of thousands of homes. And the population of the East End of London, which was very poor at the time, was moved out to this new massive public housing area in Becontree. This became a very populous area, therefore, and for a while it was relatively well off. There were jobs, there was industry, a number of major factories were located here towards the East End of London, running parallel as it does to the River Thames, so that there was transport and good transport connections in general. And the Ford Motor Company set up a factory in Dagenham, and that provided major employment for the area. So in the post-war period there was plenty of employment, and the borough did relatively well. But in the 1970s, a lot of that industry was moved out of Britain and outcompeted in the car industry, for example, by first of all Germany, and then Japan, and latterly Korea, and more recently China. So a lot of those secondary industries moved out. They moved out of the area, and so unemployment became very high in Barking and Dagenham. Many families that had moved in to work in those industries were left without employment, and those families had often come from overseas. They were families that had migrated from Africa, from Asia, and so today Barking has one of the most multi-ethnic and multi-faith demographic structures across the whole of Britain. The majority population here is white, just under 50%, but something like 25% are Asian, and the main Asian group is from Bangladesh, many of whom are born in Britain but are descended from Bangladeshi families, and so at least 1 in 4 people in Barking and Dagenham are of Muslim faith or Muslim family. So it's a very diverse place. There's also a very strong and numerous British black population, particularly from Africa and also from the Caribbean. Now, when the population shifted, when employment declined, Barking in general fell into a period of urban decline and became one of the poorest boroughs in Britain. At one point it was the 5th poorest in the whole of Britain. But there's been a plan, and it is now a site which is subject to a major urban regeneration plan. And there are a number of places across Britain, particularly in the north, but also a number of London boroughs that are subject to the same or are given the same kind of regeneration plans. So as you can see all around you, there are high rises, and these high rises are new. They've come up over the last 5 or so years, and particularly the last couple of years in the post-COVID environment. And the idea then is to regenerate this urban area. Of course, with it has to come services. So there are schools that are being built, there are community centres that are being built, and lots of other factors have to be taken into account. So Barking and Dagenham, in that sense, is going through a major shift in terms of its housing provision. There are a number of issues, of course, as you can imagine. The very poorest of the poor will not be able to eventually live in Barking and Dagenham. Those that are born here will probably have to move out. It also means that there's pressure on transport systems, pressure on waste systems, and so on. I was talking to a councillor the other day, one of the 17 wards within Barking and Dagenham, and he was telling me that waste disposal is a major issue because of these new blocks that are being built literally overnight. The population is currently 218,000. It's likely to rise to getting on for 270, 280,000, the councillor told me. So that's a major change in population, but it'll also signify a big shift in the demography of that population as well, as I say, because increasingly the area is likely to become gentrified. And with gentrification, the more marginal in society are often pushed out, and where they move to or migrate to is always a significant issue. So this urban redevelopment process always brings with it winners and losers. There's no doubt that the process that's taking place in Barking is positive for the borough in general, but on the other hand, for the most marginalised in societies, it can often provide further marginalisation. Sadly, it's always a process to balance that, the politics of urban regeneration. But Barking and Dagenham then, Georamble, June 2023, the politics and the geography of urban regeneration. So yeah.